Hello and welcome. I'm Maria Ressa, and this is Rappler Talk. Jerico Petilla's performance as energy chief boasts a number of achievements. Under his leadership, power generation investments improved, the dispute between Korean firm KEPCO and Metropolitan Waterworks and Sewerage System was resolved. But in April, Petilla announced he was resigning. Now he's running for senator. What were the challenges and triumphs running energy for this country? From the cabinet to the Senate, what's next for Petilla as the guy in charge of power? Let's talk energy and politics with Jerico Petilla. Good to have you here, Iko.
Thank you, Maria.
Thanks so much. Let's talk first about this transition. Of course, we wrote about your resignation. What exactly happened? What made you resign?
Well, you wrote it already. So, but what was not there actually was.
So let me just point it out then. So if you haven't seen it, it's he resigned because of an appointment to the ERC.
To the ERC, which I disagreed to some extent.
Would have given preferential vested interest, right?
It causes imbalance in the industry because it's recommended by one of the players, and this is a regulatory body. But long before that, I've actually asked the president, can you let me go? Okay, I've asked him to let me go. And he kept on asking why. I said, after a year and a half, I've seen to some extent, the impotence of the DOE secretary's position. And I kept on repeating to him, there's something you can do. You were there because you put you there because you're supposed to control everything. I said, yes, but only to some extent, because there are limits to what a DOE secretary can do. And what's the difference? What's the agenda DOE? What's the challenges, basically?
Yes.
This is how it goes. Not so many people know this. The government cannot create a power plant. It's prevented by law.
Okay.
That's IPIRA. It cannot trade electricity. It cannot also buy. In other words, it can't do anything as far as supply and prices are concerned.
Right.
Yet, when there is a problem of high prices,
it goes directly.
it's a DOE.
Right.
When there is a lack of supply, it's DOE. And I keep on telling everybody, look, we're out of it since 14 years ago. So who's doing the trading? Who's creating the plants? It's private sector.
Right.
Private sector creates a plant. The buyer is the private sector. Okay, everything is private sector now. What about the plants owned by the government? It's mandated to be privatized by law, again. So that's the challenge that we have because you're now focused on, unlike before, long time ago when we were still small.
Right.
Okay. Department of Energy was in charge of almost everything, including trading, creation of plants. Now it's all private. What's the role of DOE? Basically, policy making.
Okay.
And in policy making, the prices are not really set by DOE, it's set by ERC as well. It's heard by ERC, it's controlled to some extent by ERC. So when IPIRA was created, the premise was there was going to be a body more powerful than DOE, and that's ERC. And that's why I keep on telling everybody, the president can appoint the wrong secretary, but never the wrong ERC, because that's crucial. And I've tried to protect that as much as possible from being politicized during my time.
Has it been politicized?
I can't say it has been politicized so much as in the past, because now we have good commissioners being appointed. But to some extent, I just disagreed with one of the appointees at that time. And this is no prejudice to that person because I really don't know him. It's just that the background is it was recommended by one of the power players.
Correct.
But I stayed on for a few months.
But even then, to have the courage to actually resign, what gave you, why did you exactly?
Principle and values, You're guided by it. It's so easy to actually decide because it goes against your principle. I was asked to do this job. I'm not here for the salary. I wasn't there for the salary, Maria, I wasn't there for the power,
Literally the power of energy and the power of sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
But the energy department is a hot seat, Nobody wants it. Right. I took it because I feel that reforms can be made in the energy sector. I'm a businessman. okay, even before I entered politics. And to me, supply of energy and prices of power is extremely important in developing this country.
Right.
And this is one job that nobody wants to take.
Why exactly is power so expensive? If I know that you know this forever, I mean, you know
Yes.
all of the ins and outs. But for a layman, short reason why, and then beyond, what do you see can be done to make it more affordable?
Two reasons. Okay, two basic reasons. Number one, there's no subsidy
Yeah.
in our
Correct.
electricity. In other countries, it's heavily subsidized. Okay, in the ASEAN countries, in Indonesia, for example, heavily subsidized, which is also not good in the long run.
Yes.
But the second reason is
Actually, Indonesia pulled back on the subsidy.
they are trying to do that
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
and they did it right after election, not before election.
Correct.
The other one is the other reason is I feel this is a market-driven industry. In other words, merkado na to.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's like it's not the government selling, right?
Yes.
You know, it's free market, and in any free market, in any market-driven industry, it cannot be successful without transparency.
Right.
And I feel what's lacking basically is transparency.
Why?
Transparency. Put it this way, okay. When I first came in, okay, I didn't even know that there's 130 plus rates in this country.
Yeah.
Your rates in Metro Manila changes, okay, when you go to Tarlac. And then when you go to La Union, they have different rates. It's like, wow, okay, 130 plus different rates in different areas. Yes, and they all have different contracts. And you will be overwhelmed if you look at the contracts, all these contracts. So to some extent, are the contracts transparent enough? Perhaps there's a better way of actually posting them so that people will question them. But I think the methodology, the practice of which contracts are actually formulated, we call it PSAs,
Yeah.
Power Sales Agreement. This is where I have a problem with, okay, the current practice that we have right now. You see, this is how it goes. A distribution utility, for example, okay, well, let's start with the power plant. We need more power plants.
Yeah.
A power plant will not be built in this country if there is no contract. So they'll seek for a contract. Who holds the demand? It's a distribution utility. The co-ops that you have there, Meralco, Veco, okay, all these distribution utilities. So they will come up with a demand forecast. I will need a certain plant 5 years from now. It takes 5 years to build a plant.
Right.
So you start the contract now. You don't sign it 5 years from now. You sign it now.
Right.
Okay, build me a contract, Maria, and then build me a plant, I'll sign the contract. So that's how it normally goes, which is fair and square.
Right.
Okay, but how are the contracts formulated, okay, or negotiated? Okay, I'll ask for a price. If I was a distribution utility, I'd ask for a price. Give me a price. You'll say 5 pesos. I'll
Right.
say 450. We'll haggle, and then we agree on a price, okay. And what is disturbing to me right now is that a price has been agreed, and then I'll say, well, first of all, before anything else, before we sign anything, I'm going to put in my money. I want 50% of your plant ownership. Oh, let me correct you. Let me correct that. I want 51% controlling interest. Okay. So what normally happens is that with the biggest distribution utility right now, okay, it's a joke around the industry. No equity, no PSA. Okay.
I see.
Which is a bit of a problem because a distribution utility in other countries, okay, seeks the cheapest power. Mukha siya, nangongontrata siya.
Correct.
Okay. I partner with a power plant with the cheapest price.
Right.
Because of that, there is no cross ownership between me and the power plant. Otherwise, I'll get my own power plant. And it's not necessarily the cheapest.
Right.
So there is no cross ownership except in this country. A distribution utility can also own a power plant, which is a conflict of interest. But that's legal. That's actually legal in this country. Now, let me go back to the example I just gave you. Okay, I negotiate a deal, power deal with you. You supply me, okay, the power. You build me the plant. We agree on a price, and I get to own 51% of your plant.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. Okay, what did you just witness? Structure of ownership has been negotiated. prices have been negotiated, have been set, but here's the kicker, Maria. I'm the distribution utility, you're the power plant. We agreed on a price, neither one of us will pay for it. It's actually the public.
The public, right.
Because power generation is passed through to the people.
Right.
In other words, we just witnessed two companies negotiating for a power they will never pay. It's the people. And you can say, well, it goes through ERC, it goes through a hearing, but how many people really attend on a hearing? Is that the optimal price? Okay, nobody knows. Why? Because we just negotiated.
So how do you fix something like this?
I have, okay. People are saying that before I left, I shoved a circular that was not well thought of. Actually, we've actually started discussion. We call it a competitive selection process. We actually started that in DOE and with ERC as well. We've been discussing that since last year. Okay, we've been very careful about making changes that will change the landscape of this industry for the good of the people and for the good of the investors. Okay, we've done public consultation. Yes. Basically, this is not like we just woke up one day and then said CSP is there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We said
CSP again is
competitive selection process.
And again, just to make sure I understand this, you're kind of describing a process that is like insider trading. Is that similar to what PSA is doing, or not quite?
Right now, it's a negotiated deal.
Right, but the government and the power producer set the price. The public pays for it. I mean, what makes that any different from, say, producing any widget, for example?
The basic difference is that the negotiated price, okay, it's not us who's going to be paying for it. It's all passed through. That's the difference. Okay, whatever we agree upon is passed through. In fact, I can make, in the contract, I can say that if the prices of oil goes up, okay, it's passed through to the people.
Correct.
Everything is passed through.
I see. Plus, energy is fundamental to every cost of business.
And everybody uses it.
Right.
Okay,
right.
So if it's a pass-through, ibig sabihin pag pass-through is that whatever the price you end up with, okay, somebody's going to pay for it.
I see. Now I understand. So it's really the person who's doing it protects everything, protects the profit line above the service.
Well, I'd like to think that when I was in the government, I actually told some power players, friends, I told them, the basic difference between you and me is that I've been tasked to protect the people, okay, the interests of the people. Yours, and you cannot be blamed, I told them, is to maximize profit because it's a business. And that's why you need rules to keep a balance between profit and public service. Because profit and public service, okay, can go in one direction. But if you have extreme greed, then all of a sudden, okay, it's bad for the people.
Right.
So profit, public service, you need rules to be put in place. And these are the rules that I'm trying to put in place. A competitive selection process where everything is level playing field and everybody competes rather than you just negotiate.
Got it. And it's far more transparent also.
It's far more transparent because sinabihan nga ako sabi nila, why do you want to have it bidded? We're not government. Okay, we're private entities. And I said, you may be private entities, but whatever you agree on, the people pay for. So to me, it has to be bidded out.
So you're presenting this in a way that makes it seem very rational and logical. Why is it not being done?
Because some people will lose future income.
Correct.
Okay. Take for example in the case of Meralco. Okay, they will not lose money over the competitive selection process. Why? They made 19 billion last year. They are publicly listed companies. So it's there, 19 billion. Okay, because of the competitive selection process, because the plants now, okay, the power deals will now be bidded out. Okay, they will still make 19 billion pesos. Why? Because the power deal is a pass-through. They don't make money out of it.
Fascinating.
Okay, they don't make money out of it. They make money every time you use electricity. There's a certain charge that you pay. That's where they make their margins, not on the power deals.
Okay.
The power deals are straight pass-through to the people. So I said, what's the big deal then? The big deal is that I'm only speculating, but the plans to actually own power plants in the future, okay, go into generation on a large-scale basis will now be thwarted in a sense. Now, when I discussed this with the president, he said, so are you saying distribution utilities cannot own power plants? I said, no, because by law, I mean, it's by law, they can own power plants. All I'm saying is that, look, I'm going to buy power. From my own power plant, I don't care. It can be 100% owned by myself. And it's no problem. I don't care if it's 101% owned by a distribution utility company. I don't care if Meralco owns the plant that will supply them, for as long as you bid it out. I have a problem if you own 100% of the plant and then you just negotiate with yourself.
Got it.
And then neither one of us, these entities, will pay. It's the people who will pay for it. This is where I have a problem with, okay? And I feel this is being subject to a lot of misinformation, that it will make electricity higher. So I can't imagine how it can go higher. Okay, I'll cite you examples. Okay, Meralco just made a deal with a power plant. Okay, their price is $4.20.
Right.
Okay, some cooperatives aggregated or banded together because they have small demands. Okay, this power deal with the power plant is at 420. Is the size is a 500 megawatt plant. Now these co-ops, they're smaller, of course.
Right.
200 megawatts. That's what they came up with, and they tried to do a competitive selection process even before the guidelines for the CSP came out. They just, why don't we experiment? It's not going to hurt us.
Right.
So they did it. You know the prices they ended up with?
What?
320. Okay. Another one, 333. Okay. 320 for a 200 megawatt. It's a lot, way smaller than 500 megawatts.
Yeah.
And you have a 320. And then in the Visayas, they're working on 3 pesos. And it's very possible that if you actually make this a standard practice, the days of power deals, 5 pesos, in Mindanao, by the way, in Mindanao, the new plants that are coming in, most of the contracts are 520 and above.
Wow.
Okay, and here you are, 320, 312, 3 pesos, 333 because of competitive selection process. So it can work. All I'm saying is that the distribution utility companies, they're professional companies.
Yes.
I know them. They work well, they're very professional. All I'm saying is that why don't we give this a chance?
Yes.
Give the people a chance. We've been at this for 14 years of wheeling and dealing, okay? Why don't we give the people a breather? That's all I'm asking.
What is stopping this now? You talked about the vested interests who are there, right? But can this be done now? What is stopping it from?
It can be done, okay? I've issued a circular,
Yeah.
but there is no guideline.
Okay.
Because the
So
guideline,
the devil in the details, or something like
the
this.
details will have to be created by ERC, Energy Regulatory Commission. The problem is they haven't issued one right now. I'm confident that they will come up with one. While it's being delayed, negotiated deals are being fast-tracked.
Right.
So that by the time it comes out, there's nothing left for the next 2 years or so.
What can a consumer do now?
The consumer, see the problem here, Maria, is power. I'm just giving you the tip of the iceberg when it comes to power. Okay?
Yes.
If I go into details,
it seems like it's made so unwieldy and unnecessarily complicated to protect vested interests. This is from the outside looking in. Is that a reality or just?
I think there are some good points about IPIRA.
Okay.
But it's so complex
Right.
that everybody wants to complain rather than understand. And for the few people who understand it, they'll just give up because you're fighting giants. And for the few people who wants to fight it, you get killed along the way. Okay, you get massacred along the way. I mean, that's what I'm feeling right now when I'm being harassed. Okay, that to some extent, what they want is a status quo, and the status quo is we will continue to have lack of supply.
Yes.
And the prices will be artificially. I'm not saying it's high, but it's not optimal.
Right.
So let's optimize everything. Make sure that the plants are going to be built by asking distribution utility companies and co-ops to lay out their demand for the next X years, make sure that the plants are built by actually bidding it out, and optimal pricing because it's bidded out, or CSP.
Got it.
Okay, CSP can be Swiss challenge and other competitive methods.
This one is to the makeup of the energy, because it seems like and again, I'm not certain if this is accurate, but up to 70% of the new energy that is being fast tracked is being pushed out as coal.
Yes,
and that seems to go against what our commitment is to COP, right, to the climate change. And again, for part of it is coal is cheaper, but it is not renewable energy. It's more but all of the reasons you know. But is that a good or a bad thing? My perception is it seems to be a bad thing, and that while we're committing to COP21, we're actually putting in place a situation where we will not be able to deal with our own commitments.
This is one, let me just backtrack a little bit on the CSP. I've issued a circular. The problem that I have there is that a guideline can be created, but the next secretary can easily thwart this.
Correct.
Okay, because if there's one thing in this country, everything appears to be short term. Okay, now let's talk about coal and renewable energy.
Yeah.
I kept a balance on this because before I came in, there was practically little heard of renewable energies. Okay, wind farm, we only knew of the 13 towers in Ilocos, but that's it. Solar farm, never heard of. Run-off river hydros, every now and then. But when I came in, biomass was non-existent as well at all. When I came in, I said, we need to fast track this. Why? Because we have so many coal plants coming in. It's a necessary evil to some extent, and they're being built already. All I could do is balance them out, okay, by actually having a good mix on renewables.
Right.
So I push for renewable energy, okay, feed-in tariff, okay. In fact, never in the history of this country have we had so many renewables pop out that quickly. What did I do? It's just a policy thing, okay. Make it easy for them to get a service contract. What used to take 2 years is now 45 days. Okay.
Okay.
And it's not rocket science. Okay. You just take away the bureaucracy. Make 80% of the decision making quantifiable, so that you only deal with 20% that's subjective. And basically make it a race. Take out all the flippers in this country. What makes this country expensive are flippers. They get a contract, they don't build it, and then they just sell it. And then before you know it, a contract has been sold 5 times and nothing has been created. So we took out the flippers. I issued policies taking out the flippers. You don't order it. You actually make sure, like for example, what did I do with feed-in tariff? It's a race. Whoever builds the power plant will get the feed-in tariff quota. In other words, you'll get the guarantee payment. But you don't get a guarantee before you build it. You build it first.
Right.
What happens? The flippers die. Okay. There's nothing to sell.
Right.
So, going back to the coal, yes, okay, we have coal, but it's also something that in the mix we can't live without.
Right.
All we can do is have a good mix.
Right.
Now, in the feed-in tariff, kasi sasabihin ng lahat, there's a 4.7 centavos increase in our electricity bill because of renewable energy.
Yeah, it's the balance of when do you pay the price, at the very beginning or at the end when the environment dies. No,
but it's not even the environment.
Yeah.
Because if I talk about environment, people will say, he's an environmentalist, he's a radical person. I'll go back and give you the perspective of energy, not from the perspective of an environmentalist, but a practical approach. Okay. It's expensive, renewable energy. Okay, but most of the expense is actually upfront because it's capital intensive. But take note, there is no fuel.
Yes.
But it's so expensive. A wind farm, for example, is very expensive. A 150 megawatt coal plant requires about 150 people to man. 150 megawatts wind farm requires only 20 people, and 17 of them are security guards. Okay, so it's easy to maintain.
Right.
But the upfront cost is very expensive.
Yes.
That we pay for it 4.7 centavos. But after 20 years of feed-in tariff, because that expires, these wind farms are still running for the next 20 years. That's a total of 40 years. But the cost of electricity now, because you recovered all the cost, it's only the security guard you're paying.
Right.
Okay, and some maintenance. From 8 pesos, okay, coal is 320.
Yes.
When we pay upfront, I'm looking at 25 centavos for renewable
Wow.
energy. But Maria, that's 20 years
That's
from
20
now.
years from now, and that's a very long-term view for
But
the people who...
yeah, but people are saying 20 years pa yan. But this is what I always tell people. If we started 20 years ago,
It would have been...
the debate is long over.
Right.
Because in this country, the problem that I see is everybody thinks about the next administration.
Correct.
What I'm trying to introduce is, listen, if we want to progress, I can't think about myself anymore. It has to be 3 generations from now. And that's why we're looking at 20 years,
Yeah.
25 years, what will happen. And these are the policies and the laws that will have to be in place if we are to progress in this country. Otherwise, we're as good as the next administration, period.
You mentioned, and I'll go back to the CSPs, you mentioned you're being harassed. Harassed by whom and why?
Well, of course, I can't show any proof, but there are some people affected by this who go to PR to hit on the CSP that it's actually bad for the country. How can a competitive selection process bad for the country? Okay, and at the same time, okay, on a personal basis, I'm being also attacked to some extent for actually authoring the competitive selection process. Okay, of course, it's kind of difficult to explain this because I don't have the millions to do PR. They have the billions to do that. Okay, and all I can do is basically defend myself to the fullest extent that I can defend myself. But you have to bear in mind, okay, I have no interest here other than the interest of the people. Okay, as a former secretary, my job was very simple. Look at the interest of the people. Okay. On the other hand, again, I will repeat because I will have to keep on repeating this, that the job of the people in the industry, it's pure business. It's to maximize profit. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's just play by the rules and not be too greedy about it. Tame the greed.
Because the problem is that the people who are supposed to be actually implementing the rules or creating the rules are themselves co-opted.
Well, I can't say that, but it's just so complex
Yes.
that I feel that probably the government is overwhelmed.
Right.
And that's why it needs more support rather than being attacked. It needs more support because every time the government is attacked, okay, when it comes to all this crisis and everything, it's actually a win situation for those who don't want the government to succeed. Because the role of the government is simply to balance profit and service to the people. Every time they're harassed, okay, somebody benefits. Okay, so again, it's a challenging position. You're dealing with large companies. And mind you, okay, when I say, well, CSP is not anti-business. In fact, here's the kicker, Maria. Most of the players want competitive selection process.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Most
to
of the
hear.
power plants.
Okay.
Why? Because with the negotiated deals, some power companies cannot supply certain distribution utilities
Right.
who are favored. Okay? Like, if I make a deal with you, Maria, okay, even if somebody offered something cheaper,
Yes.
if I don't talk to them, the deal will continue with you. So these other people are marginalized, and they're not small companies, they're also big. They want this. They want a level playing field.
Yeah.
A lot of the companies actually can live with a level playing field. Okay? But the problem is they can't come out. Why? Because they always have doubts about the government. Okay? Here's Secretary Petilla.
Understood.
We commend you for actually having the CSP.
Yeah.
But what if the guidelines don't come out?
Right.
And what if the next secretary will just thwart it out of the window and change the rules?
Right.
What will happen to us? We won't be able to get any contracts anymore for the distribution utilities,
Right.
okay, who are affected by this. And that's why they opt not to come out until there is a clear
It's
path
already-
that
yeah.
it's really going to happen.
What will be the signal that that's going to happen?
Signal if it becomes a law.
Yeah. And which segues, why are you running for the Senate?
It's like this, okay? Okay, everybody's asking, what were you thinking of?
Well, I asked you that, and you didn't really respond on the record when you resigned. So what were you thinking of when you decided to run for the Senate?
You know, if I wanted a position, I'd go back and run as a governor.
Which
Okay,
you
why?
already...
The budget of the governor is bigger. You have 2,500 employees. In Senate, you can hardly give anything to your constituents because it's large scale and you have a small budget. You have 20 to 30 people. That's all you have. As against 2,500. I have to deal with the entire country and campaign. In Leyte, if I run, I will run unopposed. Okay, it'll be a breeze. But if I wanted a position, I just take that position. But I'm not after the position. I've never been after the position. I've always been after what I think should be good for this country, because in the end, okay, we can stay here forever. Okay, our kids are going to live. You know, they're going to handle this economy. Okay, what will I tell my children? Okay, I didn't do anything because I just went back and became governor. If I'm eyeing for this position, it's because there are certain issues. My forte is actually not energy; it's health. It's actually health. I give talks on health. Education, because I was an educator. But people look up to me now because you are Secretary of Energy as well.
Right.
And if there's one thing that I can contribute probably is the complexity. The complexity of energy. Sabi nga nila so I asked before, you know, we passed IPIRA 14 years ago. How did we pass IPIRA? Why did we, you know, paano nangyari to? Bakit nagkaganito pinasa natin? Somebody told me, we passed IPIRA through sheer ignorance. Because we really didn't know what this thing was all about.
I was there. I mean, I was there. Definitely, we need to try something better.
Okay. But now, okay, all I'm saying, because it's complex, okay, in order for you to debate this, okay, in order for you to make some changes, you have to understand the laws that we have in place, the policies that we have in place, okay, and how it can be tweaked to actually serve the people. That's not going to be easy, okay. There's a lot of misinformation that will come out. You have to be very strong about this.
Right.
And probably that's the only thing I can offer at this point, to make the changes that most people would not want to touch on.
So you've certainly had the example of standing up to a president based on principle.
It's principle. You know, I go back again, Maria, okay. Again, it's not rocket science, okay. I've always wanted to find out what makes a company successful, because I have my own company. It's 25 years old. It's successful. No, it's not. Why? Because I consider a successful company going beyond one generation. So if it becomes 50 years old, okay, then I can say it's successful. And then you have people in career, government service, private sector. What makes them successful? I've been trying to get a common denominator, and I found out it's actually core values. You stick to your core values, okay? You know, success is not just about making money. It's about having peace of mind, okay? You focus on your core values, okay? You may change your business, but your core values is the same. You may change career, but your core values are the same. Then that really is the key of the success. I'd like to believe that I have those core values, and that will guide me through anything in this world.
I just want to ask you what you think about politics at this point in time. I mean, these elections are going to be interesting. It's the first time where social media can actually play a role. Hopefully the youth can come in. So many people have been co-opted by the system. You were part of power, you stood up against it, now you're running for office yourself. How would you describe the Philippine politics today, and what makes you think you can change it?
Philippine politics, okay, as far as the voters are concerned, because they also define the kind of politics that you have.
Absolutely.
Okay. The voters that we have in this country are emotional.
The most emotional country in the world, according to Gallup poll in November of 2013.
It's emotional that anything can change. An event can change the entire thing.
Yes.
Basically, it's you never know what will happen until the last day of the campaign period, because anything can change. That's how emotional people are in this country. Okay, and to some extent, if you want to make it, you have to actually immerse or get involved with the emotions of the people,
Okay.
which is not easy.
Well, not only that, where do principles come in?
Well, you stick by it. Because if you compromise your principle just for you to win, then you just lost in an election, fair and square. From the very day one, you just lost. That's how I see things, okay? You stick by your own core values, okay? You'll always be a winner.
And my last question, because I know that you have to leave also, but were there negative repercussions for standing up for what you believed in
yes.
as Energy Secretary? What were
Yes.
they, and how did you deal with them?
You get attacked left and right, okay? For the people who don't understand power,
Yes.
okay?
There are a lot, because it's hard to understand.
Yes. For those people who do not understand power, they expect that when you sit down, you'll solve it in one day. This monster has been created for so many decades. You can't undo it in one day, or 1 year, or even just 2 years. And then for that, you get killed, or you get harassed. Okay. I'll always see myself as a soldier, Maria. You defend for those who cannot defend themselves. You fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And along the way, you can get killed. That's a risk that you'll have to take. And not everybody is going to take that risk. Pero ang tinatanong ko parati, if I don't take this risk, who will? If I don't stand up, then I'll be one of the people in the social media complaining and doing nothing about it. I'm trying to set an example. Let's stop complaining. Let's start doing something. I'm not saying you all run for public office. It's not easy. But you try to find a solution in your small way. Okay? This is a big step for me. But it's a step that has to be taken.
Excellent. Wonderful. Any last thoughts?
Last thoughts, okay. Again, this is an industry difficult to understand.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that you may change DOE secretary 100 times and he can't do anything if he's bound by the law in the from the very first place. That is, to some extent, needs to be tweaked. In other words, there's only so much you can do as a secretary. It's the law that you have to change.
And that's the reason for the Senate. Thank you so much for this. We've been speaking to former Energy Secretary Jerico Petilla on power, track record on problem solving, and his run for the Philippine Senate. I'm Maria Ressa. Thank you for watching us.